Alright everybody, today we're going to talk about removing the 5900 series control valve from the tank without drawing the D-tube up. One of the problems is the D-tube will get stuck on these control valves over time, and when you go to unthread the valve, it'll pull the D-tube up out of the media. And so this is one way to be able to show you to perform that without that happening. You basically can do this on any of the other type valves that have the piston, vertical piston type control valve. So the first thing you're going to want to do is make sure you vent all your pressure. After your pressure is vented, I would go ahead and just put the unit into bypass. At this point, you can leave the bypass on and disconnect it from your unit if you want to maintain water to the house. For the video purposes, I'm just going to leave it on the valve here. So after your pressure's been vented, you don't have any more water pressure, go ahead and remove your dust cover. What we're going to do, if you've done your seal and spacer or your piston service on these valves, this will be real easy. You'll be very familiar with it, because that's basically what we're going to do. We're going to remove the control portion of this, the piston and the seal, so we can see the top of the D-tube. So I'm just going to go ahead and spin the unit around. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and remove this. If you have this series, the SIG 3, you'll actually have this flow meter here. You may or may not have the flow meter, but we're going to remove the flow meter out of here and put it to the back. The first thing we're going to do is remove the two black screws here that hold what we call the shelf in. So we'll go ahead and remove those. And this little shelf comes off. The next thing we're going to do is go ahead and remove the screw here that holds the guide to the piston. And then the last thing we're going to do is go ahead and remove the three screws. There are these two screws here that hold the head on. So now with these two screws removed, you should be able to remove the whole control part like this. So at this point, now what you have are the three screws here that hold the piston assembly in. We're going to go ahead and remove those. Go ahead and pull the piston assembly out and remove all the seals and spacers. And then remember, your bottom spacer there has the little notches on it. Okay, so once that's removed, basically you have your whole valve body here and you can see the top of the D-tube. I've got a cutaway sample here I want to use to show you. So as you can see, this is what it's going to look like down in there. That's without the D-tube. And then you can see the D-tube in here. So what you're going to want to do is, as you're unthreading this, you're going to want to tap with a wooden dowel or a plastic dowel on top of that little D-tube. The plastic part of the ballpoint pen, you can actually use that. Take this out. These work really good. And you're just going to want to get down in there and tap on this little white part about every half a turn, and that'll just basically break it loose. Okay? So you'll go like a third to a quarter of a turn, tap, 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 tap. A little bit more. Tap, 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 tap. Again, you can rock the valve body back and forth in the threads. Tap, 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 tap. And by now, you should be broken loose. Now, this tank here has no media in it, but as you'll see, the D-tube came up with it. If you have gravel or media in there, it sometimes will hold the D-tube in. Okay, so now you've got your head off. Let's talk about the D-tube. So the D-tube should be flush with the top of the tank. If you are 1/8 of an inch to 1/4 of an inch, say 1/4 of an inch max up above the tank, you're still going to be okay. You're going to be able to put the head back in. What you don't want to do, if you get up more than 1/4 inch, what happens is when you thread this back on, you put a bind on your D-tube, and you'll break either the bottom basket or the D-tube. You'll get meaty up in the head, it'll be a mess. So once you're down here, if you're up less than 1/4 inch, you're going to be okay to go ahead and reinstall your control valve. If you're up more than 1/4 inch, let's say you're up about half an inch, something like that. There's two methods you can do at this point. The first method would be try to seat the D-tube back into the media with water pressure. You can shoot water down through the middle of the tube and out through the bottom basket here, and it'll kind of move the gravel that you've caught underneath there and help seat it back down. You can see the link on the video here. We have a video showing you how to do that. The other option is if you're up about an inch, no more than an inch, you can take and protect the top of this tank, and you can actually very carefully cut the top of the D-tube into burr. We don't recommend this because it's so easy to damage this tank. So if you do apply, if you plan on going that approach, be very cautious and make sure you protect this. I would use something even more than tape, like some heavy duty cardboard, tape it all down, and then just come across it. If you're up more than an inch, you can't get the D-tube set back in. Unfortunately, at that point, you're going to need to dump the media out of here and start over. Okay, hopefully that helps out with everything, and that's all for today.